Welcome to the Hawkeye Report podcast right here on WQAD.com and the Hawkeye Report. I'm Matt Randazzo. This, of course, is, I almost called you Corey Cuffler. That's what I'm used to doing, Matt Randazzo to Corey Cuffler.
Corey's better looking.
Well, it's just the lesser of two evils, I would say.
At least.
And I look like him, so what does that say for me?
You guys are twins.
This is Tom Kakert.
You dressed up today, thanks.
Yeah, of course. This is my Friday, I can't wait to be Saturday look. We're going to talk about the people I think at home are wondering why we haven't done a vidcast earlier in the week, and I had somebody email me that we were hiding because we didn't want to talk about how bad Iowa was on Saturday. Busy schedules, but we're here now, and you were right. Penn State, you picked Penn State to win.
I did.
You can
not
gloat.
By that,
you can
not
gloat now.
By that much. That was ugly.
It
was ugly. I mean,
we'll break it down, but
there's no two ways about it. It was ugly. They got beaten in every phase of the game except maybe kickoff return.
And what was that? That was you're up 38-0.
That was a Walner-Bellius 2004 Arizona State is what it was, and I tweeted that at the time. The Walner-Bellius is in the house.
There was but then it went bad fast.
Yeah.
Where did it go? I mean, you could sit there a laundry list of things that went wrong, but the defense was bad too, but the offense is just
I think
atrocious
a couple
right
of
now.
things. The offense really struggled. No Mark Weisman. Greg Garman wasn't ready.
Mm-hmm.
Wiseman was not healthy. You could tell that the first run. There's no explosion from him. He's an explosive runner. He's not a fast guy, but he's explosive,
when you say
powerful.
explosion, you don't think, you
Power.
talk about when he gets hit, exploding through defenders to pick up more yards.
He just didn't have that. And Vandenberg was going one way. The receivers were going another. We can talk a little bit more about the passing game. And then on the defensive side, talking to James Morris after the game was one of the most interesting conversations we've had all year with a player. He basically said Iowa's defense got exposed. They did some things that the Iowa defense they know is a weakness, but they tend to be able to hide it, and teams don't figure it out.
Would that
Penn
weakness
State
be pressure on a quarterback?
Well, that was a problem too, but just some of the routes.
Okay.
They exposed some things in the back end that not a lot of people probably
I think
could
that
figure
was
out
the
how to
surprising thing
expose.
because Iowa's secondary has been pretty good this year. Been really good
They
this
used those
year.
hybrid tight ends like that Kyle Carter kid, and just created some real mismatches. Got some guys open. McGloin, better. I mean, that kid's improved as much as a quarterback as I've seen in years from last year.
Such
to
a different
this year.
system what they run too under the
Bill
old era.
Bryan's the real, at least to this point. I mean, you look at that Penn State team. 2 weeks into this season, they are dead in the water. They lost to Ohio, who was undefeated, by the way.
Yeah.
But that was in Happy Valley. And then they lose at Virginia, who's a bad team. Virginia's not any good at all. And they lost to those two teams. They have no kicking game. You've got all this turmoil that surrounded the team. You would think after an 0-2 start, the team maybe goes in a tank. They've done just the opposite. I mean, they're playing terrific football. They may beat Ohio State this weekend.
They've been playing really good. Some of the biggest complaints on your website, HawkeyeReport.com, we'll kind of go through them, and we'll get to Coach Ferentz in a second because that's a whole different age. I don't really like to critique. I mean, you can critique, but you don't want to bash college kids. They're young. They're trying their hardest. And I think James Vandenberg is a fantastic young man. Really, really fun guy to talk to. He's just not playing good football.
No.
And there's really nowhere to there's no excuse for it anymore.
And you feel bad for him because you know he's such a good kid that he got booed and booed and booed. And then the team going off, they handed out the little rally flags or whatever, the towels.
Which became
projectiles at halftime to throwing them, particularly their own student section, throwing them down on the guys coming off the field because they were angry. I've never seen Kinnick as empty as it was in the fourth quarter of a game that didn't have any elements involved in it. It was empty.
Yeah. I would have wanted a quarterback switch.
I would have too.
I think everybody did. I can completely understand why it didn't happen considering Coach Ferentz is your head coach. I mean, I didn't expect one because of the head coach, but I think everybody in that stadium wanted a head coach. My argument, I guess, with James Vandenberg is we talked about this earlier in the week, just the two of us. When has he been good? Pittsburgh, Louisiana Monroe, I guess Ohio State when he really didn't know what he was doing. Purdue. But I mean, you can look at a guy who struggles and says, but he's been really good in this chunk of time or this sampling.
He's had some okay.
There's no sampling to say, hey, he
very
deserves
good
to.
and more bad.
But so little very good. Because Pittsburgh, he was bad until the second half.
Yeah.
So that's my whole problem with the whole thing is if you could had something to like, if Iowa fans had something to grasp onto and said, hey, he played great last year, but he's never really been.
Well, he did pass for over 3,000 yards last year. He did throw for 25 touchdowns last year. Those are very solid numbers. They're not spectacular, but there haven't been many 3,000-yard
I think those stats hurt him right now because people saw what he could do, what he was.
Yeah, and I think there's some expectations. But it's funny that, when that Stanzi senior year, when they were that team was kind of scuffling a little bit, Rick wasn't lighting the world on fire, so to speak, even though he was throwing better than he was in his junior year, his stats were better. They were calling for Vandenberg based on that 09 game. That's just the nature of fandom. When a quarterback struggles or the team's struggling, the first place you look is a quarterback change. And I just don't. Kirk's basically, if you read between the lines, he's basically said Rudock is not ready. That
was my next question. Is this something that Iowa fans can be worried about going into next year? And is it Rudock next year? Is he your guy next year? Is it is it Beathard? Is it the junior college kid, or is it going to be an open competition?
I'll compare this to 2007. You remember that year, the year of Jake, and how many people wanted a quarterback change?
The year of Jake, is that what they call it?
That's what I call it, the year of Jake.
Okay.
The year of Jake. And he kept insisting they weren't ready, and there were some people calling for Arvell Nelson, for gosh sakes, and also Rick Stanzi. And Kirk just stuck with Jake through that year. They don't go to a bowl game. Then he opens up things in the spring and basically says, open competition, it's him and Rick, and they go 4 games into the year. Then after that Pitt game, Kirk basically said, we're done with this, this rotation at kicker, we're done with this rotation at quarterback. Rick's our guy.
So this is
the way we're going.
So this is so Rudock is Ricky Stanzi not ready yet.
Maybe I don't know if Rudock's the guy. I don't know because there were a lot of people in that 07 year.
I've been hearing that he's not the guy.
Yeah, there were people in that 07 year who were primarily calling for Arvell Nelson to be the quarterback, and he was gone.
Yep.
And that was Marvin McNutt was still at freshman quarterback at that point in time. So they've had to, kind of adjust. And I just, it could be Sokol. Sokol is really not an option right now because he wanted to redshirt this year, and you'd be crazy to play him now.
You don't want to do that now, especially with 2 years is all he's
got,
right?
You're not going to play, and you're not going to play Beathard because he's a true freshman. But there's some buzz about Beathard, but I don't know how valid it is, and you're not going to get a lot out of Ferentz. When you ask about those young guys,
it's James the rest of the year.
Unless he gets hurt. And that was a concern of mine in the second half after Brandon Sheriff went out because Nolan McMillan, and God bless him, I mean, he was trying, but he hadn't been out in the field much. He hasn't played in a year and a half or longer maybe, and just due to injuries. And he got thrown out there, and Penn State was hitting on all cylinders, and he was getting beat, and James was getting pounded.
Let's say going into Nebraska, Iowa still has 4 wins. Is it still? I mean, this is James throughout, no matter what. My thinking was maybe after a bowl game goes away.
I don't think you're going to bench a 5th-year senior on senior day.
But if you don't have any, so who? Let's say he gets hurt. Who plays? Is it Jake?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not Christensen, but Jake.
So
you got me. So many Jakes going on now.
I got y'all.
I sat on the sidelines. I stood on the sidelines, and I listened to people just light up Coach Ferentz. And the thing was, the one I heard the most, and I'm not completely defending him because fans have every right, especially when you lose 38-7, to be upset.
Lost 3 home games.
And I get all that, and I think I'd read someplace between November of 01 to September of 06, so it's almost a 5-year sampling. Iowa lost 2 games at home. This year, they lost.
State, and I'm trying to think. Maybe
this year they lost. They've already lost 3. So obviously, and so the frustrations I get and all that stuff. Why does money come up with it so much when and we pay for the taxpayers pay?
Taxpayers do not pay for it. It's all private contributions.
That's what I don't get, and I guess that's why I want to address it here because you hear We pay for this. Our taxpayer money goes. This is what I'm hearing from people that don't understand the situation whatsoever. If you want him gone because he's bad coach or because you don't like the results, that's a totally different thing. But you're not paying for anything here.
It's
Am I wrong?
an entertainment. The other one that drives you nuts is I've invested in this program. No, you've bought tickets or you've voluntarily given your money to the University of Iowa.
And those tickets have actually paid off pretty good because there have been some pretty good moments at Kennedy Stadium. It's not like
been some really good moments.
There's a lot more booms than there has been busts.
It's an entertainment. It's like buying a movie ticket. There's nothing on that ticket stub. Now, you can look at it at home, and there's nothing on there that says it guarantees you to leave there happy with a win.
Money back guarantee, nothing like that.
There's nothing on there. It's like a movie ticket.
And also, probably the same guys that are yelling these things probably would do absolutely anything for Kirk Ferentz back in 2009.
Yeah,
so I probably heard the same guy yelling "In Kirk we trust" 2-3 years ago.
The money thing is it's a non-starter with me because would you be less upset if they were paying Kirk or whoever $500,000 a year to be the head coach? Would you? No, you'd be the person who'd say we need to pay a lot of money to get a good coach, and if the ideal coach, I mean, if you look at a resume and you wipe out the whole Iowa thing, Kirk Ferentz would be a good fit.
Yeah.
I mean, he's won Big Ten titles. He's won a BCS game.
And I completely get
don't like
it.
I know it's
what you've done for me lately. I get all that, and I understand the frustrations.
Yeah.
Here's what I'm worried about. Our good friend John Marks went up with me to the game, and we get in the car and we're heading back home. There's no playmakers on that Iowa offense. And when are there playmakers coming? That's I guess my biggest long-term wise. Iowa fans have a lot to be worried about because I don't see, maybe it's there, but I don't see that light at the end of the tunnel right now.
And then you're relying on an offense, and we get a little wonky here, so pardon me for doing this, but the offense, they're not throwing the deep ball much. And maybe it's because they don't feel like these guys can get separation or whatever. But the Texas fans and Texas beat writers that I talked to before Greg Davis came said, "You ready? It's going to be horizontal, horizontal, horizontal. It's not vertical, vertical, vertical." He's not a vertical guy. And you look at most of what he's done with this offense, it's rarely vertical. I mean, Michigan State to Keenan was a rare vertical.
And I can think of times last year where there were vertical hits. And I know Marvin McNutt was there, and I get all that.
Ken O'Keefe liked to take 3 or 4 shots.
Keenan Davis got deep, I want to say, against Penn State and Northwestern last year. Northwestern got deep for a touch. And I can remember, and I understand Marvin McNutt is a big factor of all that, and I get it. But there were other people, they took shots last year. There's none of that this year.
If you're going to rely on the short passing game and trying to do those things, you have to have guys with explosive athletic ability, those little water bug kind of guys that can catch it and go.
They're not there.
And they don't have that.
No, they're not there.
They just don't have
They got
those.
6 tight ends, and that's it.
Yeah,
I mean,
they just don't have guys that can.
As a recruiting guru named Tom Kakert, is that coming? Is it in-house? Do they need to go to John Marks said they need to go to the junior college and find some of the fastest wide receivers that you could possibly find and go. You okay down there?
Yeah, I had a little cord that was stuck under my shoe.
Just checking.
So
I didn't know what was going.
Fixing my cord there.
Yeah, but
it was pulling down my shirt.
That's what I was afraid of. I thought you were fixing your cord.
Hey now.
All right, let's get back to football. Is that in-house? Do they need to go to the junior college?
I think they like some of the guys that they've got coming in.
But they like some of these guys coming in.
Yeah, and that's what makes the Fleming move to D-back kind of odd too, because he seems to be that explosive, athletic guy that you can play in space in this offense. But mid-season they move him.